Welcome back to WZ Tales. In today's story, we explore a husband whose wife never stopped comparing him to her ex and slowly turned that ex into the perfect man he could never beat. As you listen, notice the moment where you think he should have stopped trying to measure up and started walking away. My wife said, "Matthew was always better than you." I replied, "Then why didn't you marry him?" Then I snapped that night at game night, called a lawyer, collected her messages to her ex, and I just watched as the woman who compared me to a ghost realized I was the one walking away for good. I've been married to my wife, Laura, for 4 years. We do not have kids. She wanted to focus on her career first. She teaches high school English. I am an operations manager at a manufacturing plant in Ohio. On paper, we look like the stable couple. Good jobs, nice house, busy social life. But there has always been this one thing. This constant, heavy thing I tried to ignore for years. Laura compares me to her ex-fiancé, all the time. His name is Matthew. They were engaged years before she met me, but they called off the wedding. Early in our relationship, she told me he was more romantic and wrote poetry for her. I thought that was just nostalgia. Everyone has a past. Everyone has that one ex they remember in a soft light, except it did not stop there. When I installed our dishwasher and it leaked a bit, she said, "Matthew could do this kind of stuff without calling anyone. He was really handy." When I forgot her mom's birthday one year, I got, "Matthew never forgot important dates. You're just not as thoughtful." When I had to work late during a big equipment installation, she said, "Matthew always knew how to balance work and life." He made me feel like I was his priority. For context, at that point I was working 60-hour weeks trying to keep us from missing production targets. If we missed them, people could lose jobs. Apparently Matthew would have done it all better, with time left over for perfect date nights. When I suggested we cut back on eating out to save for a rental property down payment, I showed her a spreadsheet where we could save an extra $15,000 a year. She said, "Matthew always had such clear financial plans. I never had to worry about money with him." They never even bought a house together, but somehow his plans were still better than anything I had put on paper. It went on like this for 4 years. Every mistake, every flaw had the same chorus. Matthew would have remembered. Matthew would have fixed it. Matthew would have known what to do. This was not just sharing memories. This was using the past as a weapon. I tried to talk to her about it, more than once. "Honey, it really hurts when you compare me to your ex. It makes me feel like I'm not good enough." She would say, "You're being too sensitive. I'm just using examples to help you understand," or "I'll try to stop." Then 2 weeks later, Matthew was back in the conversation. I loved her, so I kept telling myself I just needed to be better. Do more, try harder. Then last weekend happened. We had a game night planned with 2 other couples, our close friends, Mike and Jen and Paul and Amy. I spent the day cleaning the house. I made homemade lasagna from scratch, set up the board games. I was proud of how it all looked. We were playing a game where you say, "most likely to," and everyone votes. Laura smiled and said, "Most likely to forget an anniversary, definitely Nate. Matthew never forgot that stuff." The table went quiet for a half-second, then gave this awkward laugh. I stayed silent. We sat down to eat. Laura took a bite of my lasagna and said, "This is good, babe." But you know who made the most amazing lasagna? Matthew. He had this special Italian layering technique his grandmother taught him. And something in me just snapped. I put down my fork. "Why didn't you marry him then?" Silence. Laura stared at me. "What if Matthew was so perfect at everything? Why didn't you marry him?" I said. "Why am I the one sitting here listening to how I'll never measure up?" she started. "Nate, that's not." I cut her off. "Oh wait, I remember now. Because he did not want to marry you either." You could feel the air leave the room. Mike and Paul stared at their plates. Jen's eyes went wide. Amy grabbed her wine and turned away. Laura's face went white, then red. "You're disgusting. How dare you? I've lived for 4 years being told that I'm second place to a man who dumped you," I said. "You worship him like he is perfect when the reality is he ran." I've been here playing husband to someone who married me because I was available, not because she actually wanted me." Laura started crying. "I can't believe you would say this in front of our friends," she said. She grabbed her phone, ordered a ride, and left for her mom's house within 20 minutes. Our friends sat there in shock. Mike finally said, "Dude," but did not finish. They left soon after. I sat alone with cold lasagna and realized I had just blown up my marriage in front of witnesses. But the worst part was that I meant every word. Sometimes the truth is ugly, but it is still true. Laura texted at 2 in the morning. "I'm staying at Mom's. You owe me an apology. We can't move forward until you apologize for humiliating me." I did not respond. Part of me wanted to apologize just to keep the peace. Another part, the part that had been shrinking for years, said I had nothing to apologize for. The next day, her family started in. Her mom called. "You made my daughter cry all night," she said. "A real man apologizes even when he is not wrong just to keep the peace." I asked, did she mention the 4 years of comparisons? She was just sharing memories. "You're being insecure," her mom said, and hung up. Her younger sister Megan sent a long text about how I was clearly insecure and should not blame Laura for my own inadequacy. "If you were as confident and actually as good as Matthew," she wrote, "you would not be bothered by a few harmless comments." Hearing the same pattern from her family made it very clear where Laura learned this. 3 days later, Laura came back to the house. She had an ultimatum. She said she was willing to work on the marriage only if I apologized for what I said at game night. She called it public humiliation and cruel. I told her I would not apologize for stating the truth. "You've never apologized for 4 years of making me feel inadequate," I said. "Not once. Matthew is part of my past," she said. "You need to accept that." That is when I started noticing the details I had ignored. "If he is just your past, why do you know he moved to Seattle?" I asked. "Why do you know his salary went up last year? Why do you know he got a golden retriever?" Her face changed. "That is, I don't know those things. You're making stuff up," she said. But I remembered every time she had dropped those facts into random conversations. "Are you still in contact with Matthew?" I asked. She did not answer. "That's not the point. You cannot control who I talk to. This is about you being insecure." We argued for another hour. She would not give a straight answer. She kept calling me controlling and paranoid and said I was looking for reasons to be angry. She left again that night. Said she needed space from my toxic behavior. A week later, I got a Facebook message that changed everything. "Hi, are you Laura's husband? I'm Matthew's fiancé. We need to talk." Her name was Chloe. My stomach dropped, but I agreed to a call. Chloe told me she had noticed Laura commenting on Matthew's posts a lot. Then Laura started sending him long messages about her marriage, about me, about regret. Chloe sent screenshots. I am not going to repeat every word, but the main points were clear. Laura told Matthew she was in an unhappy marriage with a man who does not measure up. She wrote, "If I hadn't settled, it would have been us walking down the aisle." She said, "Sometimes I think I married the wrong man." She painted me as controlling, jealous, and prone to angry outbursts. She said I monitored her phone. I never did. She said I isolated her from friends. I encouraged her girls' nights. She said I made her feel small. This is how emotional affairs often start. One person rewrites the story so they can be the victim and their partner can be the villain. Matthew's replies were polite but weak. "Sounds difficult. We were young. I hope things get better." He did not shut it down, but he also did not push it. It was just enough to keep her fantasy alive. Chloe said, "I'm not okay with my fiancé being someone else's emotional support for trash-talking her husband. You deserve to know. I'd want someone to tell me." Her voice shook, but she was calm. I could tell she was hurt and angry, but she was not trying to hurt me. She just wanted the truth on the table. I thanked her. That took courage. Now I knew it was not just comparisons. Laura was still in contact with Matthew. She was tearing me down to him, building herself up as the tragic heroine who married the wrong man. I started taking action. I backed up our financial documents. I consulted a lawyer. I learned that with the house in my name from before the marriage, no kids and both of us working, my case was pretty straightforward. My lawyer told me that proof of emotional infidelity and lies could only help my position. I decided I did not want to save this marriage anymore. I wanted out. When Laura came by to pick up clothes, I had the screenshots printed and laid out on the kitchen table. "Before you leave, I want you to look at these," I said. She glanced down, saw Matthew's name, and went pale. "How did you get those? That is a violation of my privacy," she said. "Matthew's fiancé sent them," I said. "While you were complaining about me to your ex, you were also wrecking their relationship. She had every right to show me." "It's not what it looks like," Laura said. "I was just venting. I never cheated." "You told him you married the wrong man," I said. "You said if you hadn't settled, you would have walked down the aisle with him. You called me controlling and abusive when I have never laid a hand on you. You made me the villain so you could play the victim." She started crying. "I made mistakes," she said. "I just needed someone to talk to. Someone who understood me." "You had a husband," I said. "I was right here, but I was never going to be enough because you are in love with an idea, not with me." She snapped. "So what? You're going to divorce me over some messages? I never even met up with him." "This is an overreaction. You checked out of this marriage years ago," I said. "You have been lying to me and to him. I filed for divorce." She got furious. She screamed about how I could not handle a woman with a past, how I was throwing away 4 years over my insecurity, how she deserved better. I let her finish. "You're right," I said. "You do deserve better. You deserve someone who lives up to your impossible standards. Unfortunately, no one will. And I deserve someone who actually wants to be married to me." She grabbed her stuff and slammed the door on her way out. The next day, I got a call from a Seattle number. "Nate, this is Matthew." I almost hung up, but curiosity won. "I know this is strange," he said. "Chloe told me she sent you the screenshots. I want you to know I was not trying to pursue your wife or break up your marriage." "You did not exactly shut it down either," I said. "You're right," he said. "I should have. I thought being polite was the kind thing to do. It backfired, but that's not why I'm calling. I realized something you need to know." "What's that?" I asked. "Laura did the same thing to me," he said. He explained that when they were together, she constantly compared him to the guy before him, a man named Mark. Mark was more thoughtful. Mark was more emotionally available. Mark would have understood this, he said. "It went on for 2 years. That is why I ended the engagement." She had a pattern. She built up whoever was not there into the perfect partner, then used that fantasy to tear down whoever was actually with her. "I do not think she will ever be happy," Matthew said. "She is always chasing the version of someone who only exists in her head." "I should have warned you, but I was just relieved to get out." I thanked him. We talked for a few more minutes. He said he and Chloe were working through it and that he had blocked Laura completely. After I hung up, I sat in silence. I realized I had never really been competing with Matthew at all. Matthew had already lost the same fight to Mark, and whoever Laura dates next will probably lose to me. It was never about Matthew. It was about her chasing an illusion. The social ripple started too. Chloe posted in a mutual friend group about people who stay hung up on exes while trying to move forward. She did not say Laura's name, but people could read between the lines. Our game night friends started to put it together. Mike checked on me. "Jen and I realized Laura did that comparison thing all the time," he said. "We did not get how much it was hurting you. I'm sorry we didn't speak up." Laura's family kept defending her at first. Her mom said I was abandoning Laura when she needed support. Her sister called me vindictive. My lawyer told me not to engage. 4 months later, the divorce was finalized faster than we expected. The house stayed with me. It was mine before the marriage. She never went on the deed. We split some of the retirement growth from the years we were married. I kept the majority. No long-term alimony. Just 6 months of small transitional support because she has a full-time job. She kept her car and personal items. I kept mine. Her lawyer must have explained how this works in real life, not in movies. Then, 3 days after we signed, Laura emailed me. It was long. She wrote about starting therapy and realizing Matthew was just the past and that I was the good man all along. She talked about how stable and reliable I had been. "I never appreciated how rare that is," she wrote. She said I was a hard worker and provider, that she took that for granted. She said my practical skills and problem-solving were what really mattered in a marriage, not poetry. She said my careful handling of finances was actually very mature. These were all the things she had mocked for years. All the things she said made me boring compared to Matthew's passion. Now, suddenly, those were the exact traits of the man she wished she still had. The timing was pretty clear. Within 72 hours of finding out she was not getting half my house and long alimony, I went from not as good as Matthew to the one who got away. The email ended with, "I know I made mistakes, but with therapy I think we could rebuild something stronger. You were always the right choice. I just could not see it. Can we meet for coffee to talk?" I read it twice. Then I replied with one sentence. "I hope therapy helps you stop repeating this pattern with your next partner, but for me, you are the past now." I have not heard from her since. Matthew and Chloe got married last month. Chloe sent a short email thanking me for not blaming Matthew and saying they had both blocked Laura. She said the whole experience, as painful as it was, actually made them stronger because they had to work through trust and honesty together. I am genuinely happy for them. As for me, I am not dating yet. I am not in a rush. I am focused on work, the gym, and friends. I hosted a small dinner a few nights ago. Mike and Paul came over. I made carbonara. The dish Laura once said was nothing like the authentic one Matthew learned to make in Italy. Everyone loved it. Kyle joked, "I bet even Matthew would ask for this recipe," and I actually laughed. It was the first time hearing Matthew's name did not make my chest tight. The house feels different now. Lighter. I got rid of the couch Laura chose that I never liked, painted the guest room a deep blue. She used to say blue was too dark. Hung movie posters in my office she thought were juvenile. Put my gaming PC back in the living room instead of hiding it in the basement. Small things, but they make the space feel like mine again. Last night I had a thought. For 7 years I thought I was competing with one man. If I could just be more romantic, more thoughtful, more like Matthew, Laura would finally be happy. Now I see I was never competing with Matthew. I was competing with a fantasy that no real person could beat. Matthew lost that fight with Mark. I lost it with Matthew. The next guy will lose it with me. The only winning move was to stop playing the game. Here are a few lessons from this story. Lesson 1. Constant comparison to an ex is not sharing memories. It is a sign that someone has not let go, and it slowly destroys the person they are with now. Lesson 2. Emotional cheating does not start with physical contact. It starts with private messages where your partner becomes the villain and someone else becomes the safe place. Lesson 3. If every conflict in your relationship ends with you being called insecure instead of the issue being discussed, that is not communication. That is gaslighting. Lesson 4. You cannot outperform a fantasy. When someone is addicted to the idea of a perfect partner, no amount of effort will make you feel like enough. Lesson 5. Stability, reliability, and boring kindness are not flaws. They only feel unexciting to people who confuse constant drama with real love. Lesson 6. Sometimes the healthiest choice is not to win someone back, but to step away and give yourself back to yourself. What about you? At what point in this story would you have drawn the line and left? Have you ever been compared to someone's ex so often that you started to doubt your own value? Share your thoughts and your own stories in the comments.